Returning to Canada's trade war with the U.S. now, the port of Churchill could soon be a very strategic asset.
Major drops in cargo at U.S. ports due to tariffs.
President Trump's trade war is affecting America's ports. Container shipment bookings are down nearly 50% from a year ago.
The port can help Canadian products reach new markets in a fraction of the time. The port has seen a spike in interest with the threat of tariffs looming.
The Port of Los Angeles is the busiest in the Western Hemisphere, but now it's preparing for a dramatic...
Cargo traffic is slowing, warehouses are backing up, and the rhythm of America's busiest port is breaking stride. In May 2025, the Port of Los Angeles moved around 716,000 containers, a 5% drop from the previous year and the lowest figure in more than 2 years. Imports plunged 9%, exports slipped 5%, and this decline is proving to be more than a short-term fluctuation. Its roots trace back to Washington's 145% tariff on Chinese goods, a decision that is beginning to rewrite global trade routes. By October, shipping lines were warning that the price of moving a single container could rise by another $175 to $400 as new surcharges on Chinese cargo take effect. The strain is already reaching the ground, forcing two of the nation's largest drayage companies, TGS Logistics and GSC Logistics, to shut down operations. When even America's trade giants start to falter, the question becomes how far the damage might spread through the nation's supply chains and what it reveals about the hidden cost of economic power. As American ports struggle to keep goods moving, Canada is quietly turning its attention northward toward an opportunity that could redefine its trade future. At the same moment the Port of Los Angeles is registering its steepest decline in years, Ottawa is setting its sights on Churchill, a remote port perched along the edge of Hudson Bay. For decades, this isolated outpost existed as a forgotten footnote in Canada's maritime history. Now, its location has taken on renewed importance. Churchill is the only deep-water port in North America with direct access to the Arctic Ocean, connected to the rest of the country by the Hudson Bay Railway. Its position offers something few others can, a shorter route to Northern Europe that can cut shipping times by as much as 3 days compared with routes from Canada's eastern seaboard. In an era when every hour matters, that time advantage could become the cornerstone of a new trade strategy. In 2024, more than 3/4 of Canada's exports still flowed south into the United States, tying its economy tightly to American demand and policy. That dependence is increasingly viewed as a strategic risk. Churchill, once an afterthought, now represents a potential release valve, a means of escaping U.S. trade volatility and the disruptions created by protectionist measures. Canadian policymakers and industry leaders see in Churchill a chance to open a new gateway to the world. Companies like Arctic Gateway Group are leading the charge, setting ambitious targets to double mineral exports by 2025 and expanding storage capacity to accommodate a broader range of shipments. Churchill has evolved beyond a regional experiment. It's a test of whether Canada can carve out a more independent position in global trade networks. Momentum continues to build. Supporters envision turning the port into a launch point for key exports such as liquefied natural gas, potash, canola, and grain, commodities that feed industries and populations across Europe and Asia. Arctic Gateway Group's plans to triple mineral storage capacity signal growing confidence that Churchill's role could extend far beyond the traditional seasonal operations. The larger goal is to weave this northern port into the arteries of global commerce, creating a route that bypasses both the cost and uncertainty tied to U.S. infrastructure. For Canadian producers facing rising logistics expenses, the appeal is clear: a more direct and cost-efficient corridor to European markets that reduces dependency on southern routes and the political turbulence that comes with them. Yet every opportunity carries its constraints, and Churchill's geography is both its advantage and its limitation. Unlike year-round ports such as Vancouver or Montreal, Churchill's shipping season lasts only about 4 months, from July to November, when the ice thins enough for safe passage. This narrow window restricts long-term supply contracts and complicates logistics planning. Even with strong strategic intent, building stable trade patterns around a calendar dictated by nature remains a challenge. The financial hurdles are equally daunting. Although an $80 million investment package has been announced to modernize the port, experts argue that a figure closer to $800 million, or even $1 billion, will be necessary to make Churchill globally competitive. The challenge extends beyond the docks themselves. The Hudson Bay Railway, Churchill's only rail connection to the rest of Canada, winds through hundreds of kilometers of peat bogs and permafrost. Maintaining this line is a relentless battle against the landscape. Plans to relocate 250 kilometers of track could cost as much as $1.5 billion, a figure that continues to climb as climate change accelerates thawing across the region. As temperatures rise, the ground beneath the rail softens, leading to more frequent washouts and higher maintenance costs. These environmental and structural barriers make it clear that Churchill's success depends not only on vision, but on Canada's willingness to shoulder the immense financial and logistical burdens that come with Arctic operations. Beyond trade, Churchill holds deeper meaning for Canada's northern identity and sovereignty. The port, its railway, and the nearby airport form a triad of strategic assets embedded within Ottawa's Arctic policy. To Canadian leaders, Churchill is more than a shipping hub. It's a symbol of national resilience and presence in the north. Its revival reflects a broader effort to strengthen Canada's foothold in an increasingly contested Arctic region. As melting ice opens new sea routes and global competition for resources intensifies, Churchill's strategic position becomes more valuable. The question is whether Canada can transform the potential into sustainable power, balancing the promise of economic independence with the reality of harsh geography and high cost. For now, while the United States wrestles with the self-inflicted strains of its tariff policies, Canada is experimenting with a different kind of trade play, one built on geography, endurance, and quiet ambition. Churchill's story, still unfolding, may ultimately show whether a small Arctic port can redefine how a nation connects to the world. Legislation such as the Arctic Waters Pollution Prevention Act, first enacted in 1970 and expanded in 2009, extends Canada's jurisdiction over waters up to 200 nautical miles offshore. More than an environmental safeguard, the law reinforces Canada's claim to regulate navigation, resource extraction, and activity across much of the Arctic. Yet not all nations share this view. The United States and the European Union continue to regard the Northwest Passage as an international strait, open to global shipping rather than under exclusive Canadian control. This disagreement has made Churchill a tangible symbol of Canada's Arctic ambitions. Every shipment that leaves its docks and every kilometer of track that is repaired strengthens Ottawa's physical and political presence in a region increasingly defined by global competition. As melting ice unlocks new sea routes and access to untapped resources, major powers are moving to establish influence across the Arctic. Energy exploration, mineral development, and even military deployments are expanding in what has become one of the world's most contested frontiers. In that context, Churchill is more than just a port. It is a statement of sovereignty and a foothold in the high north. Its development reflects Canada's broader effort to secure both economic opportunity and strategic leverage in a region where geography and geopolitics now intersect. Meanwhile, the story south of the border is unfolding very differently. America's once dominant trade engine is showing signs of strain. At the port of Los Angeles, the nation's largest, cargo volumes have dropped sharply. In May 2025, the port handled about 355,950 containers in imports and just over 12,000 in exports, marking its weakest performance in more than 2 years. Port officials admit the downturn is not merely seasonal. The slowdown traces directly to Washington's aggressive tariff strategy, most notably the 145% tariff on Chinese goods that has disrupted established trade flows. Executives across the shipping industry warn that these policies have made U.S. ports less competitive, increasing costs and uncertainty for shippers worldwide. Higher tariffs discourage both imports and exports, eroding confidence in the stability of American trade policy. By October, shipping carriers projected container prices could rise by another $175 to $400 per unit as new surcharges on Chinese cargo take effect. The fallout has already reached the ground. Two of the country's largest drayage operators, TGS Logistics and GSC Logistics, have shut down, exposing how deeply the strain runs through the logistics network. Behind the numbers lies a more personal impact. Each container that goes unshipped represents delayed goods, higher consumer prices, and growing pressure on manufacturers who depend on imported components. Smaller logistics companies face mounting losses, while larger firms are reassessing supply routes and partnerships. What was meant to strengthen America's trade position is instead creating friction across the system, slowing the flow of commerce that underpins its economic strength. In this shifting environment, the contrast between Canada and the United States is becoming increasingly clear. Canada is pursuing flexibility and independence through its northern frontier, investing in infrastructure and Arctic access as a hedge against global volatility. The United States, meanwhile, is contending with the self-imposed consequences of protectionist trade measures. Both nations face the same pressures: rising costs, geopolitical uncertainty, and the reshaping of global trade networks. But their responses reveal sharply different strategies that the world's largest economy, with all its resources and infrastructure, is beginning to see fractures in its trade arteries. Questions arise about the future of its competitiveness. At the same time, Canada's push northward could mark the beginning of a new era in North American trade. As the Arctic becomes increasingly navigable, it may evolve into the next great stage for regional and global commerce for analysts. The shift signals something deeper than a temporary slowdown. When transportation costs surge and reliability falters, the efficiency that once made U.S. ports dominant begins to erode. Each delay, surcharge, or missed shipment chips away at the trust that global manufacturers place in America's logistics system. In that erosion lies a clear incentive for shippers to look elsewhere, to routes that promise stability, speed, and predictability, even if they run through the icy waters of Hudson Bay. What once seemed like a stable foundation of American trade is now showing cracks, and the world is taking notice. Economists warn that if these pressures persist, cargo flows could begin shifting away from traditional U.S. gateways such as Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Savannah toward routes that offer greater stability and fewer financial shocks. Some producers are already diversifying, exploring shipping corridors through Canada and Mexico, while others are evaluating ways to bypass North America entirely by linking Asia and Europe directly through expanding Arctic routes. In this changing landscape, attention is turning northward toward Churchill. The question gaining momentum is whether Canada's Arctic experiment can capture even a fraction of this redirected traffic and translate it into lasting strategic advantage. Yet that outcome will depend on more than ambition. Churchill's promise rests on its geography, infrastructure, and its ability to overcome the natural constraints that have long defined the harsh, shifting edge of Hudson Bay.